Maui, who's generously sponsored by Emerson, Ethan, and Darcy Firsch, and I wanted to talk to you about kind of the process that we have to go through to get these dogs prepared to fly overseas to Norway to compete in the Finnmarksløpet. There's a lot of paperwork that has to be done, and all the I's have to be dotted and all the T's have to be crossed to make it work. So first things first, every dog that races in the Iditarod or to travel overseas has to have a microchip. That microchip is usually implanted right behind the ear in this loose skin or in the scruff kind of back here. All the dogs that compete in the Iditarod have a 9-digit microchip. Unfortunately, those microchips don't work overseas. So last year we had to go through and re-microchip all the dogs. Their microchips kind of look like that little guy right in there, and it's about the size of a grain of rice. So you take your scanner, and as soon as it wakes up, you can scan the dog, it beeps, and there's your 15-digit microchip number. So starting with that, that's the identification for each dog. That has to happen before any of the vaccines can happen, so that when the vet does the vaccine, they can correlate that this microchip number received this vaccine on this date. Now the first thing they have to have is their their Bordetella, which is this guy right here. And this is actually an intranasal injection, so they literally just spray it up their nose, and it helps prevent kennel cough. This is a requirement for the race, not to travel to Norway, but just to be able to race. And it has to be given 6 weeks prior to the race, and this was kind of a driving factor for us making our decision to go to Norway. By the time I finally made up my mind, we were 6 weeks and 1 day before the race. So we got to the vet right away and got that vaccination done. At the same time, all these guys were given their 5-way vaccination. This is all kept track of on their rabies certificate. So this rabies certificate right here is actually for Mr. Drift, but it has the dog's chip number on usually the upper right-hand corner. Norwegians love stickers, at least all the officials do. So it has the sticker on there from the rabies vial that they were vaccinated from. This rabies vaccine is signed off as having been given to this microchip number on this date. Now on the back of this, we're going to put their Bordetella sticker, as well as their 5-way sticker, also signed off as by the vet on those specific dates. And then up here, it actually has the dog's previous Avid 9-digit microchip number, as well as his new 15-digit microchip number. All right. Now, once we get all these vaccines done in the appropriate amount of time, as we start getting ready to actually travel, there's a few things you have to do in less than a certain amount of time before you leave, such as the dog's health exam, which is actually a requirement by the airlines. They have to have a physical health exam and have their health certificate issued at least, or not more than 10 days before you fly. The next step is they have to have their dewormer, which we use last year we used this Sentinel, but the active ingredient is praziquantel. So again, they like their stickers. We make sure the stickers are all on the paperwork. This paperwork right here, after they were given this dewormer between 20 and 120 hours before arriving in Norway, it's then signed off on by the USDA vet. So they look over all the dog's paperwork, make sure that the dog has what they need to enter the country you're going to, and stamp that before you're allowed to leave the country. Once we arrive in Norway, in the Oslo Customs, which the Oslo airport is one of the ports of entry you're allowed to bring dogs into from other countries. You can't just fly to any airport in Norway. When you arrive at that airport in the customs, you're met by a Norwegian state vet, which is going to scan that dog's microchip, make sure that this is the dog that the paperwork is referencing, look through all the paperwork, make sure that they have their rabies vaccination, make sure they have that dewormer, and then you're going to be cleared to continue on through customs. As per the flight regulations, you can only travel with 4 dogs on any given flight. That's all the dogs the flight is allowed to take. So if there's already somebody who's booked 1 dog on that flight, there's only 3 remaining spots. So I have to sort through all the possible flights and find the ones that nobody's booked a dog on yet, so that I can fly with 4 dogs, and then return, get 4 more dogs, fly back over again. Once we have all the dogs collected in Oslo, we're going to load them up in our car and trailer over there, and drive about 30 hours north to Alta, where the race actually starts. So that's kind of the basic program. One thing when we're actually traveling, though, is it's a really long ways from Alaska to Oslo. So we break up the flight, mostly for the sake of the dogs. So when I leave Anchorage, after we do all the vet paperwork and we get their wormer in them, load them in their crates, go to the airport, fly down to Seattle, we're met by our Seattle Dream Team, who picks us up at the airport, takes us to their home, where the dogs can spend the evening running around in their fenced yard, and then the next day we'll go back to the airport and fly from Seattle to Oslo just to break up the flight so they're not in a kennel for some exceedingly long time. When we do it that way, the longest that we're kind of in transit is just under 12 hours, which is still a long time. But last year when we moved 16 dogs over and back again, not a single dog had an accident in the kennel, so that was very nice. But that's kind of the breakdown of the process, the paperwork that it takes to get a dog over to Norway, and then all those steps have to be repeated to then return back to Alaska.